Maricopa County Courthouse in downtown Phoenix as we are here at the Lori Vallow Daybell trial. And I apologize, I'm trying to fix some settings. I had some trouble with my Wi-Fi this morning, and I tried to schedule this live um, in advance, and I wasn't able to do it. We are on lunch break right now. Hello, everyone. Good to see you. I cannot change any of the settings from right here. So I hope that Jen will be in the chat here pretty soon. I don't know how to change it to subscribers only from right here. So anybody who's in the chat, please feel free to ban anyone that is being disrespectful or talking about things that are not related. And okay, I just lost it because I had a phone call come in. So yeah, you guys probably, those of you who are watching, probably just finished the break right where Nancy Joe Hancock was on cross-examination with Lori, and so I'm sure lots of people are fired up about that. Um, it was it was explosive in the courtroom, I can tell you. I am going to get to that, but I do want to go back to the beginning. So if you're just joining, the very end of this live right here is where I'm going to talk about um, the very explosive cross-examination that we just had between Lori Vallow Daybell and the woman who went on a date with Charles Vallow the night before he was shot. Um, it is explosive and fiery. And if you're not watching because you don't want to listen to Lori, you're going to want to stick around for this because this was the craziest, most unhinged thing that we've seen in the courtroom so far. Definitely something that you're going to want to listen to. And it's not over. When we just before we went to break, Judge Boreski wanted to continue with the cross-examination, and Lori said, "This is not going to be quick." So we've got a lot more Nancy Joe to come, and I am 100% team Nancy Joe. I am going to coin this phrase right now. She is the anti-Lori in every way that I've seen so far, and I don't know her, but she came into the courtroom. She's wearing a very nice pink blazer with a black shirt underneath, and she has dark hair and dark eyebrows. And I immediately thought, wow, and then when she began to speak, I was like, she's definitely the opposite of Lori. She's very clear, she's very direct, she's very concise. There's no hint of silliness or flirtiness about her. She has nerve, she has class. She stuck it to Lori. So you're gonna be happy to hear this, especially if you've been annoyed and frustrated with Lori thus far. And also, I want to say I apologize for the location. I'm trying not to get people in the background, but I was at my normal spot, which is it's a peaceful little spot in the courtyard with some beautiful landscaping in the shade. And I was getting ready to go live there when one of the jurors from this case came and sat down about 100 feet away from me. And I knew he was going to have to cross in front of me to get back into the courtroom. And I did not want to chance anything at all. And so I decided to move very, very far away. Um, I have been very careful about looking around to make sure that there are no jurors from this case near me because the jurors are not eating together alone in a group away from the rest of us. They are coming out in and out the same entrance and exit, and they are some of them jurors from other cases with jury badges on, sitting, in the courtyard just amongst regular people. So I'm just trying to be very, very careful because I don't want there to be any even hint of anything that would not be good for the case. So I was late this morning getting to court. I slept much better last night, but I had a very difficult morning. It was just very emotional for me, and I had to um, redo my makeup a couple times. And so sorry, it just was a rough morning. So it took me a while to get to court, and I was a little bit late. So I missed about the first probably 2 or 3 minutes of testimony from Detective Coons on this continued cross-examination. So Lori did not finish her cross-examination yesterday, so that's what we began with this morning. And Detective Coons was one of the detectives who was on scene. He was the scene manager at the Four Peaks residence the morning of the shooting. So I'm doing okay. I was struck by some things that I haven't fully processed, I guess, and so I just had a few moments where I needed to take some time. So lunch break ends at 1:30 Arizona time. And thank you guys all for the support and the kindness. I really appreciate it. As I said last night on my live, um, I could not do this without you guys. I think this is it's so healing for me to be able to talk out loud about it. So anyway, I want to go back to thanks, Mix Bunky. That's super kind of you. Um, So I want to go back to the testimony. We started out with Detective Coons, the continued cross examination. And Lori has been obsessed with this shirt. And we finally found out this morning why. Because she's trying to assert that the fabric of Charles's shirt was made of bamboo. And she said, Detective, were you aware that this was a $200 shirt? Well, no, of course he's not aware of that, silly person. Thank you, Nikki Peaches, so much. Appreciate that. And do you realize that this was made of bamboo fabric? And even though she was going on about this a little bit, and it was annoying, I have to say these were some of the first, at least, valid arguments. What did I write down? This is the first time I've heard her make a decent argument. Thin, yes. Reaching, yes. Um, but she was trying to say, I guess what she was trying to assert is that sometimes when you have constricting tight fabric, oh, thank you so much, Susie Catherine. When you have constricting tight shirt, that it's possible that a wound could be shored up. And so what they were saying is that uh, the exit wound of the first bullet was shored up in the back. And they're trying to make the case, the state is trying to make the case that that's because he was on the floor and the bullet struck the ground. Oh, Tony, thank you for gifting memberships. That's so kind. Guys, if you have the settings turned on to receive gifts, then you can randomly be selected to receive a membership when someone gifts. So that's the state's assertion. But what Lori is trying to say is that if you had a very tight constricting fabric, it could shore up a wound. So she was trying to make the argument that this bamboo fabric was constricting enough to shore up the wound. Now it's not, she's wrong. It's not tight enough. It's very loose. And the bamboo aspect of it, it makes it sort of flowy and breezy, not tight. Thanks, Mix Funky. I definitely will 100%. I did have some celebration bubbly last night to celebrate my 1 year podcast anniversary. 1 year of podcasting as of yesterday. Thanks, Crash D. I appreciate that so much. So Lori was not able to finish to the conclusion. She just lets it go at the end. So even though she was kind of trying to make some decent points and she had a decent argument for once, she couldn't close it. She couldn't finish the argument. Um, and they were talking about the plank in the floorboard, and what did I say? Okay. So they were talking about the plank in the floorboard, and the detective said that they seized this evidence. And Lori said, "What does seized mean?" Um, so he said it just means that we removed that part of the plank from the floorboard. Thanks, Gal 8. That's kind of you. And so she was talking about projectile fragments, and she was asking if there were any projectile fragments on the plank. Well, Lori, obviously, there's a lot she doesn't understand. Oh my gosh, there's a hummingbird literally right next to me. I love hummingbirds. Sorry. Squirrel. I did take my medicine today. Um, so Lori's trying to argue that the bullet would have left some kind of fragmentary evidence on the floor, which is silly. It's metal, it's wood. It's just not going to work that way. So she's questioning whether or not the bullet actually hit the floor. So she did a lot of questioning about, you didn't even test this and you didn't even test for residue. Did you test for residue? And as you know, she likes to continue to repeat things over and over, which I have a theory about that I'll get to in a second. They only lived there 3 weeks. Could the bullet have been left by the previous tenants when they moved? Was it there when we moved in? Well, he was able to answer this on. Trina K actually covered this beautifully on Cross. I don't know how many of you are watching, but if you've noticed, she has when her hand is on the projector and she's pointing to the divots in the floor, she has a very interestingly shaped pen. Thank you, Carmela. That's so kind of you. Um, if you notice the type of pen, it's very thin. It looks like it's made of a very hard material, and there's no way to remove the interior ink well from the pen. And I think that is because it's a special pen. They gave Lori a special pen because it can't this pen that she has can't reasonably be used as a weapon. And I think that's the reason why. Do you guys remember her asking, oh, thank you, McSpunky, for gifting memberships. Do you guys remember her asking to have a pen? Because I think previously, up until that point, she only had like a dull pencil to write with or something. Yeah, exactly. They can only have pencils, but she specifically requested one in one of the hearings that we saw. So there it is. It's the jail pen. Um, just wanted to point that out. Now she put a picture up on the screen. It was one of the exhibits, and I have to admit, in the picture that she put up there, it does sort of look like the divots in the floorboard that were left. There was one divot left by the first bullet, second bullet, and it does sort of look like it's the same size as the other divots from that one photograph, which is why they take more than one photograph, and they actually have the physical evidence. So that's why they removed the plank from the floor. So we'll get to why that's important in just a second. So to a layperson, I'm saying, just to me, it does look like the bullet divot was the same size as some of the other divots, but she is overly repetitive. Trina K is objecting to asked and answered over and over. And I want to point out one other thing is that since Lori has been referring to Charles Vallow as her husband, which infuriates all of us, by the way, anyone I've talked to about it, ma'am, your husband is on death row. Charles Vallow is not your husband. Anyway, because she's referring to him that way, the detective also said, oh, thank you, Danny Holt. The detective also said, your husband, but he does it in a way that I don't know if it's calculated or not. If it is, it's incredible. But he always says, when the bullet passed through your husband's body, every time he refers to that. So Ashley Ray, this is a question I think everybody's going to want to know, and I would save it to later, but I know I'm going to forget. The divorce actually was not in progress. Charles filed for divorce back in February of 2019, but then he withdrew the paperwork, or he didn't move forward with it. So I think he had filed, but then he changed his mind. He had a change of heart and decided not to. But they were very clearly separated. And I find it infuriating that Lori is calling that into question when she was obviously having an affair. So we'll talk about that in a minute, because we're going to talk about Nancy Joe. We are going to talk about it. I cannot wait. Um, she Lori finishes when somebody asks, or when somebody finishes answering a question, she keeps finishing with this commentary. And if you remember from yesterday, the judge cautioned her on that and said, I would caution you not to continue to finish because it's a form of testifying. But she continues to say things like, that's fair, at the end. And then she wants to examine the actual plank of wood, which I think is a good idea, but it's not going to be in her favor. And she asks, can I find out? She just asked the general room. She asks the room, can I find out what exhibit that is? And the judge has to tell her, well, your paralegal should know what exhibit number that is, and she should be able to get that for you. And so this repeating the questions and trying to be overly repetitive with the same questions that she's asking. Oh, Mama T, thank you. Thank you. Um, Reminds me of a person that I know who has obsessive compulsive personality disorder, which is different than OCD. When you have the personality disorder, It's not just the like washing your hands over and over, checking the locks over and over. The personality disorder, um, the traits of this are a rigid need for control, an excessive focus on rules, details, and order, a need to be correct and flawless, and overly repetitive. Over explaining was the trait. And so um I just need to make sure. Is Jen here? I don't think I texted her to let her know that I was going live. Oh my gosh, Gina Tracy, thank you so much. This is so kind. I'm just gonna text Jen real quick. So you're gonna lose camera, but I'm still here. Don't go. Okay, so thank you guys for being patient. But anyway, it just reminded me of this person that I know that has this personality disorder. And I think that is part of it, like her, not necessarily her rigidity, but her obsession with getting the facts out there and asking the questions over and over and over. So that's what that reminded me of. I wonder if that's part of her diagnosis. Um, and I think she does have some histrionic traits too, which the histrionic is like the excessive hyperbole, those kinds of things. Um, so here's another question that a lot of people have asked is, did they swab Alex and Lori's hands for gunshot residue? And this witness said there was no reason for us to swab for residue because um, Alex stated that he was the shooter. And Lori said, did he tell you that? And he said, no, that's what was reported to me. And she brings up, thank you, Kathy W. So kind of you. Um, she brings up that she also was not swabbed. And I think this is a really bad idea because the detective says, actually, no, I don't think you were swabbed. And here's the thing, if you're a defense attorney and your client is guilty, you only have so many options of what you can do to try and bring reasonable doubt to the jury. And one of the things that you could do is make a suggestion that it's possible that someone else may have committed the crime. Well, what Lori did just now is she made a suggestion that someone else could possibly have committed the crime, but that someone else is her. Ah, no notes, Lori. Good job. Um, so then Lori says, after 5 years, all you know is, and she listed off a few of the facts of the case. And he was like, no, that's not all we know. Those are some of the facts of the case, but that's not the entirety. And Lori says, so you can't even say for sure who shot him. And you don't even know what time he was shot. And you don't even know what time he passed away. Well, he said, we can say with the evidence that we have that is a reasonable certainty that Alex Cox was telling the truth when he said he was the shooter. So that was that. Thank you so much, Neil Campbell. I do need a pizza, I think. I was going to treat myself to Chick-fil-A for lunch, but I really don't feel like digging into that. So I probably will just have my protein bar like I usually do. um, so then we have redirect, and we know that on redirect that Trina K is going to take care of all these details, and she's going to be very concise, which she is. They talked a little bit about the directionality of the casing ejection. If you remember from yesterday, that was something Lori was asking a lot about, was which direction the casings were coming out. And I'll show this when I go on my live tonight, because then I can show you the diagram of where all the evidence was. And it was a little bit weird that um, it was a little bit weird that the two casings were found so close to each other, because casings can bounce off of things, especially the hard objects. You know, it's metal and they can roll. And so but she did a really good job of saying you don't know if this is where the casings actually landed, because they could have been kicked or moved before you got to the scene. And so that's always a possibility, right? So she did a good job of pointing that out. To me, the proximity of the casings being so close to each other bears out the idea that it's likely he didn't move between the first and the second shot. If you just go bang bang, and then the casings hit in about the same place and land in about the same place. So that makes sense to me. Um, this witness also attended the autopsy, and from the viewing area, and there was no stippling. You notice Lori made a big deal about stippling yesterday. And the medical examiner stated that the gun was 2 to 4 feet away from where Charles Vallow was, and so there was no stippling present. Um, it occurs to me that it's always bad when it's not clear to the jury or to everyone in the courtroom why the questions are being asked. Um, the distance between the casings confirmed the bullet strike evidence. Then they gave the actual physical wood plank to the jury. Um, and I thought that was a great idea because then they were able to examine and see how different the bullet divot was from the other divots that were found in the floorboards, and they were able to see that it was clearly not the same size. Lori keeps trying to make this point that Charles was standing for the second shot and not on the ground because he's on the ground. It's sort of, hey, Irish Jen, so glad you're here. I think a lot of people got booted. I hope they did, anyways. Anyway, Lori's trying to make this argument that Charles was standing because if he was standing, it's more likely that self-defense could be claimed, but if he's on the ground, can't really claim self-defense. A lot of people are asking me in comments and in other in other venues if the jury can ask questions about Tylee and where she is and why she's not testifying. I think the only way for that to happen is if Lori testifies, because the jury can only ask a question of the witness who's currently on the stand. They don't just have carte blanche to ask whatever questions they want. Um, so anyway, let's see. The witness talked about the freshness of the defect. Thanks, Joan Brasher. Very kind. Appreciate that. The path of travel and the fact that it had a semicircular edge. Um, and he finished by saying the angle of the trajectory is not consistent with anything other than Charles's body being on the floor. Thanks, Scrambled Egg. Yes, I need some Excedrin. I planned to take some before I got to court this morning because I knew I was going to need it, and then I forgot. And then he also said the trajectory of the first bullet had somewhat of a downward motion. This probably because Alex was a little bit taller, and the bullet started to lose momentum as soon as it hit Charles and then hit his spine. This is unbelievable that I'm talking about this right now, you guys. And so that's why the bullet, because it lost momentum, it had a downward trajectory. That's how it ended up in the floorboard on the other side of the room. Ooh, fabulous bad bitch. Thank you. Appreciate it. Oh, I got a pound, 2 pounds. I love that. Um, so let's see. I'm only I'm only one page into these notes. Um, and I have enough time. I'm going to cover Nancy Joe. The detective finished by saying, I let the evidence speak for itself. And the last questions confirm he was standing for the first shot. He was on the floor for the second shot, unequivocally, no doubt about it, nothing. Okay, so now we have Nancy Joe. I am team Nancy Joe. Absolutely love her. She is the woman that Charles went out on a date with the night before the incident happened. And she is 61. She's self-employed. She's from Mesa. She has 5 kids and 15 grandkids. She is the anti-Lori. They met on an LDS dating site, which I've been on one of those, and I'll elaborate on that a little bit more this afternoon for the live. They texted on the website or messaged on the website first, then got her phone number. They met first in early July. She said there were hundreds of texts prior to meeting, that they talked on the phone for hours. Charles told her he was in the process of a divorce, which to me means, so he had filed for divorce, then he changed his mind, but clearly now they're separated. So I think that Charles, in his mind, was thinking, okay, now I'm going to go forward with this. I'm going to push the paperwork forward. So I'm sure that that's what he was thinking. And hopefully there will be some more clarification on that on redirect, because Lori is making a big deal about this. Let's see. So what Charles told her is that he was in the process of divorce, that he was living in Houston and his soon to be ex was living here in Phoenix. That's correct. They were definitely separating separate residences. And he said he was talking to a realtor so that he could find a place to live here to be closer to JJ. She knew that he did life insurance and something with money, but she said that the job was not the main thing. She was more focused on getting to know him, and he told her a lot of details about his life. Um, Lori objects to this before Trina K even finished her question. So there's nothing she could have objected to. She hadn't even finished the question. That's a moment to go back and look at. I'll definitely be showing clips of that. And then Charles told Nancy Joe why they were separated, that they'd been separated for several months. They were both members of the LDS Church. And then she talked about some of Lori's beliefs that were very far outside of the mainstream LDS beliefs, in her opinion. He said, Nancy Joe said he was strangely calm and kind when talking about Lori. This is going to be important and it's going to come back later. Um, she was aware of JJ living with Lori and she was aware of the older kids. And she described Charles as charming, kind, funny, and very, very fit, very interested in fitness, and that he had really good banter and that they could talk for hours and hours. So I love that. She did not think they were exclusive. She knew that he was possibly dating other people and even told her about another woman that messaged him with scantily clad pictures and then asked for money. So they only met once, and that was the night before. They went to dinner together. They met around 7, and they closed down the restaurant, and then they talked for another 45 minutes next to her truck outside. She said he was ecstatic to see JJ and take him to school the next morning. She said that they were set to meet the next day, but didn't have a definite time. Charles did say he was meeting with Adam the next day, and he said Charles was like a kid on Christmas morning, excited to see JJ. And she said again, she was surprised at how kindly he still spoke of Lori. Charles hoped that he would be a great mom. She knew about the life insurance. He gave her a lot of detail. And then she testified that she told Charles he probably should tell Lori because he was worried about his safety. And Charles chuckled and said he probably should. Now, this cross examination was fiery. Lori is angry. For those of you who know me and who have been on my channel, you know I've told the story of when Lori kicked me out of the apartment when we were younger. I'm going to revisit that this afternoon because this is exactly what I thought was going to happen when she cross-examined this woman. She still referred to Charles as my husband. Did you do anything to verify the divorce? Are you surprised to learn that it's not in process? And she said, I didn't know anything about that. And Lori said, it was not in process. Are you surprised? And she said, okay. He was in the process of a divorce. She said, did you know that you were dating a married man? She said, I was dating Charles. I went on a date with Charles, is what she said. And there are a lot of times when Lori was asking an inflammatory question, and she would just say, okay, we just met for dinner. I wasn't sleeping with him. She said, do you often date married men? And then Trina K objected under Rule 611, harassment of the witness. Lori said, did you know the divorce was not started? And she said, okay. Lori said, okay. Um, did Charles send you a text? Did you send a text asking Charles if he was a good kisser? I don't know, possibly. Did he answer? Objection to relevance. Um, he told you all the details of our lives. Um, and then you talked all about me. And she said, don't flatter yourself. We didn't talk about you that much. Absolutely fire. Absolutely love this woman right now. Wish I could just give her a huge hug and $1,000,000, honestly. Whew, so excited about that. Lori is super paranoid and she doesn't like people talking about her. And when they do, she wants to know exactly what was said. And this is what she did to me after that date. What did you talk about? Did you talk about me? Did you kiss? How much did you kiss? All of that stuff. So this is basically what she's trying to use this venue to find out what was said about her on this date. I think she's probably been waiting forever to do this questioning, and it's very clear that she is off the rails here. What else did you talk about? Talked about a lot of things. Like what? Be specific. Did he talk about the relationship with Tylee? She didn't recall. I'm sure you don't. Objection to making comments after the witness states something. Um, and then she said, did you talk about, you stated that that you knew that he was in, sold insurance and life insurance. Um, did you talk about that at dinner? And she said, no, we didn't talk about his work. And she said, well, you stated that you knew that insurance policy, blah, blah, blah. And she said, You asked if we talked about work, not about the policy. She was very calm, very straightforward, but firm, firm. Oh, thank you so much. Fabulous. You're amazing. Um, you were dating different men, right? Sure. Um, is it common for people to talk about their supposed exes? She said, actually, it's really common. Really? Really? I'm not surprised. Again, objection to comments afterwards. Um, did you text after dinner? What time? I'm not certain. Was it 10:45? Was it midnight? Was it 1 a.m.? I just told you I'm not sure. Um, and then objection to relevance. And then she said again, or Lori said, so you talked about a lot of things. Be specific. What things? And then there was a sidebar called because of the objection. Um, Trina said, can we narrow the scope down about the a lot of things? Um, and then they wanted to do a sidebar, but apparently the tech wasn't working properly. So the judge excused the jury. And then and then he said, Judge Boreski said, are you sure you want her to answer that question? You are opening a big door. He was trying to warn her. He was trying to warn her. And I couldn't hear Lori's response because she didn't say it into the microphone, but I'll go back and watch the live feed afterwards. Um, and but it was something to the effect of, yes, I want her to answer that question. And so the judge said, all right, let's bring the jury back in. And we waited for a few seconds while they go out the door. The jury started to, line up in the hallway outside. And then Lori says into the microphone, Judge, this is not going to be quick. So do we want to go ahead and take a lunch break? And so then the judge excused the jury and said, all right. So guys, I cannot wait for the rest of this cross. I hope that Lori is going to, because she doesn't know, first of all, she doesn't know what she's doing. Secondly, she's only focused on figuring out what they talked about. She's not thinking about the fact that Nancy Joe could talk about the children. She could bring in lots of other stuff that could happen. I hooray that she opens the door to that. But I do also want them to follow the rules, do the proper objections, make sure we don't get a mistrial. That's all. So I'm really looking forward to the rest of this cross. I am team Nancy Joe. My writing starts to get erratic because I'm so excited about listening to what they're saying, and it's a fiery back and forth exchange. Valhalla, thank you. Vala Hawks. Oh, thank you so much. That's kind of you. Stargazer, thank you. Very kind of you. Thanks guys for being here. So I'm so excited for the rest of this witness, because I really think Lori's going to step in it here. And I said to somebody outside, one of my friends that I ran into, I said that cross examination was like a little piece of frosting in this sandwich that we've all been eating for the past 5 years. So I'm here for it 100%. Thanks for being with me. I think I am going to go grab a little bit of a snack. I'm tired. I'm hungry, but it is this is so necessary. The truth is so important, and Charles deserves justice. I'm so grateful that Nancy Joe spends some time humanizing Charles, and the fact that somebody speaks kindly about their ex is that speaks volumes about their character. And when I was dating and doing those stupid sites, and I probably was on the same site that those two were on, not at the same time, obviously, but I've seen that those LDS dating sites before. That was one of the things that I looked for. How do they speak about their ex? That's a real marker of how healed they are, of how mature they are, of what kind of a person they are. So I think I was just grateful that she really humanized Charles, and she said such kind things about him. And I love that she talked about how much he loved JJ and how excited he was to see JJ. She got a little bit emotional when she said how excited he was, and we all know why. The jury doesn't know why yet. Um, so anyway, I'm grateful for this witness, and I'm grateful to be here for somebody finally pushing back on Lori. And this lady knows how to hold her ground. She is bully proof, y'all. And if you haven't checked out my bully proof course, where I teach people how to respond to manipulation and control. You should check it out. It's on my website at third-verse.com. Please do me a favor and hit the like. 1,500 people here, only about a third have liked. I appreciate that. And if you can subscribe, that's the best free way to support the channel. If you can financially support the channel, I do have a Venmo at third_verse. And I do have a Patreon. So find me over there for bonus content. So happy to see you guys this morning. It's a bright spot in my day, and I will see you this afternoon. As soon as court is over, I will head back to my creepy little rental and we will get this done with the entire recap for the day. Thank you so much. Third-verse.com is my website. Thanks everyone for being here. Thanks to my mod, Jen, my awesome mod. I'm so sorry that this was a struggle today because I didn't get it set up correctly, but I will see you guys all very soon. Take care.